The Cam Spencer replacement you never heard of. You're Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On UConn, your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions may apply. Well, it's still transfer portal season, everyone, at least until May 1st when the transfer portal window closes. And we haven't talked about who is going to fill in for Cam Spencer, the Rutgers Loyola transfer that came over and really lit the UConn world on fire with his competitiveness, with his ability to be a kindred spirit with Dan Hurley. There really isn't a replacement for him. It's kind of mission impossible. But there is one player that we haven't spoken about that, we talked about Kobe Brea initially. It's been real quiet on him lately and haven't gotten any indication that he's making his decision anytime soon. There's one under the radar replacement that I feel like would be an absolute shoo-in replacement for Cam Spencer, and that's none other than Max Shulga, the Ukrainian transfer from Utah State and most recently VCU. Shulga stands out as one of the top shooters in the transfer portal, but he's more than just that. He's got a real smooth change of pace, frequently draws fouls with a solid almost 50% free throw rate with impressive averages, 14 points, 4 assists, almost 5 rebounds at VCU. He's proven his versatility since joining from Utah State under Ryan Odom's wing. Originally hailing from Ukraine, Shulga's shooting form resembles that of Svai Mahalik. He was originally a sharpshooter days at Kansas, recently put up 50 points in the NBA for Detroit. He's quick and compact with a career three-point shooting percentage of just a hair under 40%, 39.5%. If you're on the hunt for this year's version of Cam Spencer, Shulga might fit that bill. Despite some back spasms late last season, that's the only real negative I can see. He still led the VCU Rams in scoring and really maintained that stellar efficiency. If that doesn't sound like Cam Spencer, I don't know what transfer portal guy is. And again, this quote is literally, it's not from me. This is from a scout, believe it, 24/7. I wouldn't consider Shulga an elite athlete, but he's a capable one. And with his intelligence and length, he's a solid team defender who doesn't get beat much off the dribble when regarding the ball. Could you see Dan Hurley having that conversation with Max and saying, look, you're going to come in and you're going to be our volume shooter, essentially hunting down threes, but also kind of coming off of screens, being in pick and roll, looking, searching for those like pin downs and those, little duck-ins where, as you saw Alex Caravan diving to the hoop for layups, throwing alley-oops to hopefully Liam McNeely, guys like that, to really kind of show the way and be that leader in the locker room. I don't know if he's got the same mentality vocally as a Cam Spencer, but I could just see this as 100% the guy. And when we start to talk about UConn in the portal, they love big guards. Who else is available? It all ends on May 1st, and we'll probably have breakdowns till mid-May to see where all this all fits. And I know some of you hate the portal, and I'm sorry for those that don't. But it's all anyone is really talking about with college basketball. It reminds me really of the NFL draft, which is this Thursday. I know Locked On has some stuff for that, and I will get to that in another segment. But college basketball, college football, that's the story right now, guys. If it's not a coaching change, like the intrigue with Hurley potentially going to Kentucky, which was never really serious, with Mark Pope going to Kentucky because John Calipari went to Arkansas. This is what people want to talk about. It's what's driving the envelope here. And I just feel like if Max Shulga, who's got Dan Hurley written all over him, isn't the pick, who else could it be, right? Really trying to read the tea leaves on this one because there's a lot of folks who like Aidan Mahaney. I know UConn's been in contact with him. He's not really a big guy because we just talked about how UConn likes big guards in the portal. Max Shulga is 6'5", 200 pounds. Aidan Mahaney is 6'3", 200 pounds, maybe 190, I think they list him at. Not ideal, but it looks like Michigan might have the inside track on Mahaney, especially now that former St. Mary's assistant Justin Joyner, who was one who brought Mahaney in at St. Mary's, joined Dusty May's crew. He's been putting up solid numbers. Same thing. Very similar numbers. Pardon me, it's a Monday. 14 points each season at St. Mary's. Sound familiar? Cam Spencer, same thing at Rutgers. Max Shulga here. He's no slouch behind the arc here with Mahaney shooting about 38% from three. His shooting dipped a little bit his sophomore year, but made up for it with better ball control. Plus, he's got some serious skills handling the ball. He knows how to work those screens, which is another thing that I know Dan Hurley loves. He's got a sweet touch around the rim, isn't afraid to take shots, little floaters, even on an off night. I feel like part of the reason why his efficiency isn't as good as a guy like Shulga is he's a little undersized, but also he played on a team where there wasn't a ton of playmakers. He had to take some shots that he was like their Tristan Newton. When things weren't flowing in the offense for St. Mary's, this guy took a lot of really difficult shots, so that dipped. He really was fantastic in 3 games against Gonzaga this year, averaging 19, almost 20 points a game, 19.7 points in 3 games. 2 wins of those by the Gales. So moving up a level, though, might mean dealing with faster guards. I think he's got some of that Cam Spencer-esque ability to kind of keep guys on his hip, beat people with more intelligence. We had Tobias Bass on last week on Friday, and he said it really is kind of the comeback of the cerebral player is back. It's not just all about blinding speed and the ability to get to the cup. You have to be able to work the pick and roll, know when to kick out, when to go, when to shoot floaters. So all of that saying that he had the inside track to Michigan, I just saw this come through kind of on the ticker. Roddy Gale Jr. has committed to Ohio State, who's another big guard from Ohio State to Michigan. So maybe Aidan Mahaney going to Michigan isn't a thing. Maybe he's potentially going to be more on the UConn radar. And by the way, has there ever been an Ohio State to Michigan transfer like this? I think that's like going from Red Sox to Yankees, but also more specifically to college basketball. I don't think there's ever been a Duke to Carolina transfer in this transfer portal world, or Xavier Cincinnati. That's crazy. I think Aidan becomes even more realistic, a more realistic possibility for the Huskies now. We're going to talk about a few more names in the portal after this. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check on LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make your process easier. They've just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions may apply. All right. This transfer portal stuff is crazy, guys. It's April 22nd. It closes on the 1st. So we have less than 2 weeks left for guys to get their affairs in order. And a name that we're going to talk about a few more names because we're on the guard kick. Obviously, we have Liam McNeely coming to UConn today and tomorrow. There's all indications from sources that I have that this is going to be there's never a slam dunk, because I feel like, especially nowadays with the NIL and what it all means, it's not just as easy as saying, well, UConn's won back-to-back championships. They have the best coach in the country, potentially the best fit for you offensively. There's all the things that go into vetting if this guy is the right fit, right? Are they ticking down the days, as Dan Hurley says, to the NBA draft? Because Liam McNeely at 6'8", 220 pounds, and wouldn't call him an elite athlete, but he's damn close. Catch and shoot guy. Let's face it, he's a better athlete than Alex Caravan. Can he do things that Alex Caravan can? Sure. Can he do it at the highest level? It remains to be seen. So that's the thing, guys. It's whether or not he's a fit for Dan Hurley and his staff, and I think he is. I think we'll find that he is 100% getting offered. Clearly, they're not having him in just to have a tea party or to take him out to lunch. So this guy is definitely on the radar. But I'm going to mention a guy who is on the radar, and I can't help but just shake off the intrigue surrounding him. A name that keeps popping up, sparking my curiosity every time. And it's just continue to pique my interest because it would be the ultimate reclamation project. And I know that UConn is not about flash, and it's not about making headlines, but the ultimate headline for this transfer portal would be taking a guy like Bronny James. Hold your laughter, hold your frustration. I'm sure I will get YouTube comments that say he's not good, he's terrible. But let's go into a couple of things that Bronny James can do really well. Especially since Andy Enfield has moved from USC to SMU. I look at LeBron himself dropping a hint recently saying and suggesting that it's been a tough decision-making process. I know there are people that don't like LeBron. I'm kind of, ambivalent to it. He tweeted on X about Dan Hurley and his staff being the best in the country. Does that mean that Bronny's going to come here? No, but it just adds to the mystery, doesn't it? So the lowdown really is Bronny tossed his hat into the NBA draft, which is silly because he's not an NBA player. But that's just kind of like the process now. If you're a McDonald's All-American, which he was, whether you liked it or not, and simultaneously dipping his toe into the transfer portal, I specifically think a move like this could help Bronny James. It sounds silly to talk about a 20-year-old's image because his image right now, and I've said it myself on X and in private chats and a little bit socially, where you have to wonder about his the mentality. He's been born on third base, and that's not his fault, right? LeBron James being a billionaire, LeBron James probably sticking his foot in his mouth a million times in his life, and LeBron James also being a really great all-time basketball player. Some people consider him the best of all time. I do not. Look, Bronny James, 6'4", 210 pounds, fits the mold of what Dan Hurley wants. He wants a guy who can shoot the rock, who can play really good defense. And those are the two areas that LeBron James Jr. does well. Remember, due to cardiac arrest he suffered last July, he didn't get a chance to spend much time on the court coming into last season. So it was almost a lost freshman year. So what better place to come and essentially be humbled, right? If you can, and I hate to say this word survive because this guy literally had a heart attack, but if you can survive Dan Hurley's camp, his practice, the game is easy and you enjoy it. That's kind of what he's had his whole career is based off of watching his father just absolutely run St. Anthony's players ragged for 26 national championships in his career, so that they could go into a game and just play and be in flow. So I definitely can see them at least sniffing around. I don't think LeBron would bother him as much because, look, LeBron's still an NBA player. He may play one more year after this. I don't know. Maybe after they get swept by Denver, we'll see what happens. But it's just one of those things where I just don't see him being as high maintenance as everyone says he is. But what my issue is mostly that we're talking about a player, and if we're just talking about the skill set and the ability for parents to kind of stay out of the way, I guess that's where you would have a red flag, right? When has LeBron ever stayed out of the way? When has he never wanted to be in the spotlight? That's the tough one, right? But if he can be, if they can, I don't see Danny Hurley being starstruck by LeBron. I see him looking at this like, hey, if your kid can come and play, then let's give him a shot. Does that mean he's going to play a lot? No, because you still have Ahmad Noel, you still have Diarra likely, Jaden Ross, Isaiah Abraham. Like, these are all guys that are going to be fighting tooth and nail. It honestly would be a not a bad place as almost like a luxury pick, because I don't see them picking up a guy that's going to play heavy minutes. Another intriguing name that I think we should stay away from is Desmond Claude, because behind the arc, he is just not a very accomplished three-point shooter. 23%, even rougher on catch and shoot at 19.2%. He did close out strong. I think their NIT loss, he was 5 of 6 against Georgia, but they were practically begging him to shoot. So I just think, and also defensively, if you go with Desmond Claude, who's a 6'6", 220-pound guard, Connecticut kid from New Haven, best pizza in the world, by the way, but defensively, he's a bit slow on his feet. He can get tangled up on screens. Definitely needs to tighten up his D and work on that jumper. But just what piques my interest about this guy is, remember, Dan Hurley is always trying to find traits you can build on. And I've heard through the grapevine, through some folks that are really connected on this and some folks that aren't, that Desmond Claude's parents are a nightmare. I don't know. And if they're not, I apologize. I don't know. This is just third party. You hear about this stuff. It's an area that I think people don't do enough research on. Not me. I'm talking about coaches. And when I'm talking about players like that, I'm talking about Kansas. I'm talking about Kentucky. I'm talking about Duke, where these players wreck your teams. And you can still win. I think that there's a really big disconnect on what we mean by that. And we're not hating on these teams, because Kansas made the Sweet 16. Kentucky got bounced by Oakland, and now they're in a transition. Duke was a game away from the Final Four. So these were successful seasons to a point. But if you're talking about being on UConn's level, you need to recruit like UConn does. And unfortunately, people really haven't caught on. And Dan Hurley, I love you to death. Please come on this show and educate us on your offense, because I think it's fantastic. But his roster construction formula, don't let them in. This quote, I wanted to say to him, I know you're talking to JJ Redick on the Old Man and the Three, great podcast. JJ, you're a Duke guy, but we'll give you a little pass. This is what he said. This is a quote. I can't say it all, but the winning, we don't recruiting bring in the 19th ranked player, and delusional coaches, grassroots players, they're ticking the days till he enters the draft. So trying to avoid people like that and put them in the organization. He's like, when he's playing, he mentions that when he's at an AAU game, he's not playing with his phone. He's watching the kid, looking for traits that you can build on. That's the key for me, talking as Dan Hurley. I don't know who it is, number one recruit out of high school. I don't care if it's the number one transfer portal guy. Dan Hurley is looking for kids who want to come in and be coached, to be made better through their system. So a guy like LeBron James Jr., could that be a guy that he could build off of? Potentially. A guy like Desmond Claude? Maybe, because a guy like him, I look at it from this perspective, right? How many people, when Tristan Newton was brought in from ECU, a college that I guarantee 90% of UConn fans had no recollection that they played basketball, other than us playing in them in the American. But the theme with Tristan is he had low maintenance. So he had traits that they wanted to improve on. But here's a guy who's now a two-time All-American, is a back-to-back national champion, has his number in the rafters. But do some of these players that have traits that they like, the last piece is, do they have low maintenance parents? Do they have low maintenance hanger-ons, right? Are the NIL agents creeping around asking for more money? All of that stuff. It's a dirty, dirty business right now. And think about it. Do Tristan Newton and Dan Hurley have the same personality? Absolutely not. Not in a million years. But they are all about the process. And together, that's why it was a fit. Just like I said earlier, not every recruit is going to be a kindred spirit with Dan Hurley. Not everyone can be Cam Spencer. And then to circle back, Kobe Bryant, where has he been? Right? I don't know if my guy's name has made everyone nostalgic to the late great Kobe Bryant, but Kobe Bryant is exactly the type of player that Dan Hurley would want. But you wonder if there's a holdup because similar to Christ Econato, who was apparently a done deal with UConn, who originally got recruited by Providence, and then he had his name floating around when he put his name in the transfer portal from St. Joe's. I got a million messages that this guy Econato is definitely going to be a UConn player. But the problem is UConn said to him, hey, we're bringing in a few different people. We like you. We're going to, we can definitely go that way, but we're not offering you right away like they did to Terrace. And so he didn't like that, and that's his right. And obviously, and he went to Providence, and maybe that gives him some motivation. I wish him the best. But so that could be the same situation here. I'm speculating with Kobe Bryant, but Solo Ball is the replacement for Cam Spencer that we currently have on the roster. But who fills that Tristan Newton role? Kobe Bryant isn't that guy because he's not a ball handler like that. Is it just a combination of Ahmad Noel and Diarra? As long as Diarra comes back, Kobe would give that element of depth as guys like Solo adjust to their new roles. So Bryant to me is a fit. We just haven't heard from him a lot. So we will talk about more players to watch and talk a little bit more about around the portal after this. The Locked On NFL mock draft is available now. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear where your local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL mock draft available now on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, so we're back around the portal. It is an interesting world, guys. I think for me, my biggest takeaway from all of this from a UConn perspective is if we look at their roster right now, right? We've done this a few times. We have Samson Johnson. We have Alex Caravan is in limbo, right? I think we really do have to start to wonder if he is going to get a grade that is going to allow him to keep his name in the NBA draft. Someone asked me about the certainty level. I think it's more 30, more like I used to be 50-50. With Liam being in the next couple days, it doesn't mean that Alex is 100% gone, but it also means there's a lot of uncertainty with the coaching staff, and they have to act as if he is gone, right? Because if he comes back, that's a great problem to have. I don't think you get someone like Liam McNeely. I don't think you promise him that Alex Caravan is gone and you're the replacement, right? Because he's going to have to fight for minutes with guys who are on our team: Jalen Stewart, Jaden Ross, Solomon Ball. I know some of them don't play the same position, but the minutes are almost the same. Like, it's not, you don't just like lose that. Apostolos Romogalou being in the transfer portal and opening up a spot kind of helps the case of Liam McNeely being a guy to replace Alex Caravan or play alongside of him. So there are more open spots than people like to talk about, because you definitely have Hassan Diarra, who is 100%, in my opinion, coming back, and I will stand corrected if he doesn't. But I think part of that conversation has to do with Dan Hurley and him coming to an agreement on what his role is, right? What's the role of Hassan Diarra? What's his thought process? Is he going to come off the bench? Is he going to start? Is Ahmad Noel eventually going to take over for him? He actually looked very good in the Jordan Classic. I'm sure some of you guys watched that. By the way, Liam McNeely with 23 points was the MVP of that game. So it's just one of those things, guys. Like, when you think about UConn from a UConn perspective, some of the players that we have already are going to be upgrades. I wouldn't even call it upgrades. There would be there's not going to be a huge drop off. I don't think anyone at the beginning of the year, myself included, and if I'm in the minority on this, that's fine. But Steph Castle didn't overwhelm us initially. And I know he had some people didn't know a lot about his knee injury and kind of getting acclimated to his role. How he ascended throughout the year was phenomenal. Who's to say a guy like Jalen Stewart, Solomon Ball, Jaden Ross can't do the same thing? Ahmad Noel, freshman, come in and have moments where he dominates, have moments where he's just a part of the winning solution. So that's also some things to consider. Around the portal, what's interesting to me is there are multiple sites, multiple people that are involved in this stuff, and not everybody has the same rankings. Like, for example, Omar Bala, who went to Indiana for something crazy like $1.2 million in NIL money, is ranked number 1 on 24/7's website. He's ranked like in the 30s for The Athletic. And honestly, I'd like The Athletic's rankings better. And it's not just because I had Tucker Bass on and I want to pump his stuff, but it's one of those things where I feel like they do a better job of discerning how good a player will be as time goes on, or the fit in different places. So what's interesting is they haven't upgraded the Roddy Gale Jr. I'm still floored by the fact that dude went from Ohio State to Michigan. So it is a wild, wild west, because that would have never happened a while back. I've also heard, and this is something that's incredible, Janelle Davis, who's the Florida Atlantic star that went to the Final Four and is in the portal, has got denied eligibility at Michigan. And what does that do to their transfer portal opportunities? Do they go back to Aidan Mahaney, who I think they probably would have been out on, considering they just got Roddy Gale? Or is Roddy Gale the replacement for Janelle Davis? You can see both situations, guys. So, look, there are opportunities for a lot of teams to get better. That is the best thing about the portal. The worst thing about the portal is these NIL, let's just call them what they are, parasites, who are essentially, I don't know if anyone knows this, but if I had a relationship with, let's pick a player in the portal. Great Osabor. It's the first one that popped up. He's the Utah State transfer, 6'8", 250-pound power forward center. Had a great year. 63% of his attempts around the basket. Was good with floaters. Looked very good at the beginning of that Purdue game, and then they got killed. So let's just say, even if I don't have a relationship with this guy, great as Osabor, I wouldn't do this. But if I said to him, I can get you $600,000 at Syracuse, and I can get that for you, signed, sealed, delivered. You can transfer there. You can, you'll start. You'll have much more opportunities from an NIL perspective. Or hell, if I went to Coach Cal and said, I can get you this guy for X amount of money, and he said, yeah, do it. If you get me him at this price, we'll sign him. All you got to do, player A or grade or whoever else, Max Shulga, all you got to do is pay me 30%. Yeah, that's all. There are people fleecing these kids, for ridiculous sums of money, because maybe they have some business savvy. Maybe they're just being shysters. My issue with the transfer portal is that it's the only thing I have an issue with, because in the past you'd have coaches, and I'm going to use an old one like Nick Saban, who said, I have no interest in the Alabama job. And then a day or two later, he goes to Alabama. I know he was coaching in the NFL, but that happens in pros all the time. Guys go from one place to another. I'm in Greensboro, and this is nothing against Wes Miller. He's a friend of mine. Went from UNCG after being there for 10 years and went to Cincinnati. I never thought he was going to take that job. He's there, going on his 4th year. Should players not be able to transfer if their coach does? Of course they should. So this whole idea of freedom of movement for players, I'm 100% for. The NIL stuff, I'm fine with it too. I don't think it was intended to be the sole purpose as to why guys leave. It was an opportunity to not lose your eligibility because your last name is Zanetto and people want to, get your autograph or give you money to, go to their car dealership and sponsor their stuff or be an influencer like some of the Instagram folks have found, like especially when women's sports wasn't as high value as it is now, being promoted on ESPN and Fox Sports. It was a great way for women to make extra money in college because they were, an Instagram, influencer on Instagram and TikTok. So that's what I felt like the true nature of NIL was going to be. But like anything else, people find ways around it. Now we have NIL collectives, and if you don't have one, you're falling behind. So it's a new world, guys. It's still quote unquote amateurism, but I think with the twist is you can't get all high and mighty about why these kids should be getting paid. They 100% should be getting paid, and who pays them is now out in the open. It's not, you don't have a bag man anymore that just throws 50 grand into their window. So that's the good news. It's not in the dark anymore. So I know some of the poaching that happens is not ideal, but outside of that, I'm 100% for it. Let's just hope that a couple things happen today. We hear good news on Liam McNeely. If I hear more stuff, I will definitely tweet them out. And let's see where this transfer portal goes. I know there's a couple big names out there. Aidan Mahaney, guy we didn't even talk about, the 6'10" power forward from South Florida, entered the portal. We'll probably talk about him tomorrow. So, just stay tuned for more updates. We're going to do this until May 1st and probably half of May until we actually get a full roster. So, wanted to mention Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV. In the free Fire TV channels app, Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now and available on free and Fire TV channels app. Well, this has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, telling you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure your toughness meter is always rising, and as always, go Huskies.